Dag the agus Falsha. Hi, hello, and welcome. It's John O'Sullivan from the Irish Pagan School, and we are moving along with the last few days of our 90-day challenge here in YouTube for myself and my partner, Laura O'Brien. As I've mentioned in the other videos, we committed that we would turn up every day since the start of this year, 2022, with some content, some video on YouTube. And it's been really great. It's been really successful. We're delighted to see the responses we're getting and also the connection that we're able to provide and the questions we're able to answer. But it has also included an opportunity for, I don't know, the best way to put it might be just cultural perspective and how it is important to acknowledge, like, you know, the culture of Ireland and Irish people, and how that actually informs our own spiritual practices and our own growth as Irish pagans. But then also for those who are remote, those who are outside of Ireland or disconnected or further away geographically or whatever, to be able to give some of that cultural insight and to help inform their spiritual practices as they kind of, you know, connect and engage with Ireland, Irish ancestries, Irish gods, etc. So today I have a bit of a rant. I do have a bit of a rant, and I'm going to be heads up on it, and probably a couple of content warnings, mentions, discussions of conflict, of war, of loss of life, of oppression and colonization. But again, I'm not going into any graphic detail, but it is the topic which informs my particular state of mind at the moment. So just give heads up, if you're not here for that, add it to a watch list, come back to it later, or don't, and that's okay. Look after you, because you're the most important person to you at the end of the day. I'm just some person in the internet. So we're going to start it as I always do with a story. Yesterday morning, this is March 2022, the 25th today, yesterday was the 24th, hopped into the car to drop our youngest out to school. And as we pulled out of our estate, we're turning around the corner and there's a noticeable Garda presence. And now, again, we were aware of our law enforcement community, the Garda. I maximum amount of respect and love. I have family who've been in the Guards, I have close friends who are as well. You know, absolute love. But there was a noticeable volume of Garda activity, and there was an entire area kind of cordoned off on a local kind of cafe and kind of organic growth venue around the corner from where I live. And I was like, well, that's weird, because they had barricades and all the rest up. And I was like, huh. And so our youngest was like, yeah, that's a bit weird. And I was like, I wonder what's going on there. And, you know, I then see a person kind of cross the road in front of us, and they're not in beat cop uniform. They're not in kind of walking street uniform. They're in formal uniform. And I'm like, oh, there's some kind of event going on. There's something kind of happening. The venue is this location. Great. So off we go on the drive, drop him in, come home, still have the barricades, a lot of activity. I was like, all right. So when his school day ends, I kind of leave to go and catch him and to pick him up and bring him home. And there's a crowd of people across the road, sitting on the grass across from this barricaded off area and this venue. And I'm like, well, that's a bit weird. They're not exactly waiting for a bus. Why is there this random gathering of people? And so I drive out, pick them up, coming back. And as we're coming back in, there's the sound of heavy chopper engines flying over us, and a helicopter moves in above. And as we come around the corner, there's a K9 unit moving back and forward in that area. And it's like, okay, well, something is going on here. There's something significant going on here, given the volume, the Garda presence, etc. And so we come in, and I'm like, I'm going to just have to Google this. I have no idea what's going on. So I want to know what's going on. And of course, our youngest, quick as, starting the phone, he's like, is Charlie here? And I'm like, what? And he shows me a Snapchat picture from someone in Waterford town. And he's like, it is. It is. And I'm like, Charlie who? Because I'm not just getting it. And then, you know, the realization clicks. It's Charlie Windsor, or Charles Windsor, also known as Prince Charles of Great Britain, Windsor. Straight away, I'm having a bit of a difficulty with that. But in order to kind of explain why, in order to explain the challenge here, I need to give you a bit of a history. Okay, so now normally my area of expertise, the part that I stick in is Ireland's mythological history. I'm like way back in, like, you know, the early kind of ancestors, the original kind of pagan deities, the Bronze Age, Iron Age, as we move up to the medieval age and the the documents, the Yellow Book of Lecan, all these kind of like Book of Kells, Book of Fermoy, that kind of store all of these legends. But I am also informed on my recent history within the last 100 years. So in 2016, there was a whole like celebration. There was a national celebration to commemorate the Easter Rising, which was known as 1916. And it was an attempted rebellion by nationalist Republican, well, not even Republican at that point, nationalist Irishmen, to strive for independence from the United Kingdom. And so there was a period of number of weeks where they took over some key kind of places around the country, and they formally declared an Irish constitution and an Irish independence. So that was our declaration of independence on the Easter Rising in 1916. But it failed. It didn't work. You know, UK gunships came right up the harbour, right up the Liffey, and pounded the shit out of like the General Post Office and many other locations around Dublin, all across the rest of the country. You know, the rebellions were aggressively put down. And that's what ended that. The people who kind of led that were incarcerated, many without trial, treated as political prisoners, and executed in many cases. So that was the Rising. And that was 100 years ago. That was 104 years ago now. 1916, 2020, 106 years ago now. But we're in 2022. And what's going on now, if we were to roll the clock back to 100 years? So in 1921, there was the Declaration of the Partition Act. So after the 1916 Rising, there was a growth in nationalism from a political standpoint as much as from a military standpoint. And so in elections, the party that came out, the political party that came out dominant was Sinn Féin. And Sinn Féin kind of set up and declared an absentee government from Westminster, where, like, you know, the main government of the UK sits. And they founded and formed Dáil Éireann, which was like the government of Ireland for Irish people. This was then later declared illegal. There was lots of difficulties. There was full-on kind of war and conflict. There was ongoing military action, leading to the invasion of, well, actually the Black and Tans, which were pretty much the worst of the worst. Military and soldier trained individuals who have returned from various wars and colonial wars out there, and then just being sent over to Ireland to put down this rebellion, which led to vast amounts of atrocities. But eventually it came to 1921, which was, you know, 101 years ago. So the Partition Act was actually agreed, and this formed the creation of Northern Ireland. This is where there was the first declaration that, okay, there is this separate intent, because, you know, there are people in Northern Ireland who want to be part of, you know, a free Ireland, and there's other people who want to remain part of the UK, and that led to a lot of the difficulties around there. Now, again, long backstory history as to why that is. I'm not from Northern Ireland. I want to like be clear and stay within my own wheelhouse here. But as we move closer forward in history, some of this does impact upon my own life in a way. So I'm going to be respectful and conscientious of the fact that I can talk about this from a certain perspective, but my perspective is completely skewed because I live in the Republic of Ireland. I have not lived in Northern Ireland. So 1922, 100 years ago now, we have the Irish Free State. So this was the kind of the next stage or the stepping stone toward this Irish independence. That's how it was viewed by many people who had been fighting for Irish independence for years, who've been kind of working through the military aspects, working through the political aspects. But this caused a division. This caused a significant division, because for some of them, it was seen as a stepping stone towards full independence and republic. But for others, it was not good enough. Like it's full freedom or nothing. So this Irish Free State was a political model, really, that would allow for the recognition of Dáil Éireann in Ireland, allow for the rule of Ireland, or Southern Ireland, as it was defined by the Partition Act, for its own self and for its own rights. And it was this establishment of an Irish Free State, which means it would be still part of a United Kingdom, but it would be free and recognized as its own entity. So for some, this was a stepping stone towards independence and full independence. For others, it was not good enough. And so that then sparked off 1922 to 1923, the Irish Civil War, where both of these disparate parties fought against each other. After all of this like conflict and bloodshed and harm and aggression and political kind of and like push, we then turned on each other, and we kind of had a go at each other for that 11 months. And more people died during that War of Independence than had in the previous couple of years from the 1916 through to the Partition Act, according to my information that I've kind of been going through. But again, the harm that was done by Irish to Irish conflict during the Irish Civil War during those 11 months was ridiculously significant and hurtful. But it ended in May 2003. So if we kind of consider history and how if we don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat history, that's only 100 years ago. That's not that long ago. But still, that's not a free, independent Ireland. It was 1937 before there was an actual recognition that there was a constitutional change by the Free State government to rename Southern Ireland as Ireland. And then it was another 10 years or so before there was the Act of the Republic. It was 1948 when the Republic of Ireland Act was passed. And at that point, 26 counties agreed to become part of this Republic of Ireland. So what had been Southern Ireland became Ireland, then became the Republic of Ireland. But there was still a bit of a gap in that there was still this intentionality towards the northern 6 counties, towards those 6 counties. And within this declaration of the Republic of Ireland, there was a constitutional claim to those 6 counties. So again, rightly, wrongly, it's still that intent, still that drive towards a united Ireland, but that then created this legal power structure from the Republic's point of view that we own that land up there. We own those 6 counties. Those are our people. And though from a political standpoint, there wasn't much done, there was like, yeah, no, it's just, we need to settle this all down. We need to figure out our new republic, our new country. From a paramilitary point of view, that was enough justification for them to continue their activities within the North. And now, throughout this entire period of history, the conflict in Northern Ireland was some of the worst that we are aware of, because there was a sectarian element that came into it as well, in that there was Protestant and Catholic. So the 2 different forms of Christianity, 2 different expressions of Christianity, and where in other parts of the country that were predominantly Catholic, there wasn't that level of divisive hurt, like sectarian violence that was actually done. And so there were parts where the Catholic minority in Ireland were aggressively targeted for reprisal strikes about what was being done in the Republic of Ireland. Or the unionist elements within the Northern Ireland would constantly maintain power through fear tactics of, well, no, the Republic of Ireland now, they could roll up their armies and roll up their tanks and we wouldn't be able to do anything about it. And so there was that kind of fear and power structure going on, from what I understand as an exterior perspective looking at this. So that continues from 1937 to 1998. That is 61 years of continual on and off aggression, violence, bombings, destructions, reprisals, terror attacks. 61 years. That is longer than a lifespan, and that is still within living memory for a lot of people. And what was it called? The Troubles. So it ended in 1998 with the Good Friday Agreement. And the Good Friday Agreement was an agreement between the new government within the north of Ireland, the government in Westminster, and the government of the Republic of Ireland, to say that there should be some recognition of Northern Ireland's right to rule itself, of like a combined, like they're going to sit in Stormont, they're going to be, representation for the people of Northern Ireland to look after themselves from every perspective, from both Catholic and Protestant, from Unionist and like independent or Republican, whatever it actually is. There was this acknowledgement, at least by the UK government, that the Republic of Ireland should be involved in helping stabilize that circumstance. And as part of that, the constitutional claim to those 6 counties was removed. But instead, what was put in place was the right to Irish citizenship for anyone who wants it from those 6 counties. So it then allowed for a shift and a change by no longer having this claim towards the 6 counties, this kind of, no, it's our land and we have to have our land back. It then removed some of the problem from my understanding. Again, speaking as a person from the Republic, speaking as a person who, didn't live in Northern Ireland, but I am speaking as someone who came up through this particular period. The latter end of this period. I was born in 1981, and I was 17 by the time that the Good Friday Agreement kind of closed, was signed and agreed. I remember it. Before that, my dad is, as I've mentioned, ex-army. He did service on the border, monitoring, communications for the Irish Army around, defending and protecting our border. He himself had to travel plainclothes with sidearm in case he was being targeted for reprisal strikes. So there's a lot that I didn't know of growing up as a kid because I was just a fucking kid. But the more I look at it now, my first trip to Belfast, my first trip from Dublin to Belfast, I was probably about 7 years old. And it was a birthday trip, myself and my dad, because I was mad about dinosaurs. And there was a dinosaur show on in the Belfast Museum, I think it was. And so he was like, I'll take you on the train. We'll go for a train trip. And we got on the train and we traveled on the train. And then the train stopped kind of in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, why is the train stopped? We're not at a station. We're not confused child sitting here looking out the window. Why are we not moving? Are we there yet? And then my dad leans over and explains, he's like, no, we have to stop here because it's a border, it's a checkpoint, and they're checking the train for bombs or for weapons. Then eventually when we do arrive into Belfast, we get off the train and we're moving through the station on the platform. And that's the first time in my life I see a fully armed soldier, fully armed, armored with an automatic rifle. And I'm kind of like, wow, it's a soldier. We're like, whatever. But my relationship to that is completely different to my dad's, who has done service, who has served in the Lebanon and served in Cyprus, with the United Nations, with the peacekeepers as well. And I remember him taking me aside and he's like, John, put your eyes down. Don't look at them. Keep walking. If anyone asks you a question or if anyone says anything to you, allow me to do the responses, allow me to talk. And of course, I'm a kid. I'm like, yeah, okay, Dad, no problem, blah, blah, blah. We're going to go see dinosaurs. Now looking back, I remember the fear in his voice. So this stuff is real. This stuff isn't as far away as, 1916 glorious declaration, there is still body count, there is still bloodshed on all of our Ireland because of all of this. And it's difficult and it's trauma and it's problem. And there are people still suffering in the Northern Ireland, still kind of surviving and managing and getting on, having grown up through all of these troubles. Again, I was born in 1981, but there are friends of mine who are older than me who born in the 60s, born in the 70s, with some of the height of the harm that was being done. The division of Catholic and Protestant areas up there, knowing that if you walked home in the wrong area at the wrong time, you were taking your life in your hands. If you said the wrong thing in the wrong place to the wrong person, you weren't just taking your life in your hands, you're taking your family's life in your hands and your neighbors. Fear. Fear is powerful, but fear is also toxic. So, what's this got to do with the start of my story? Why have I rambled at you for a history lesson? Why have I told you all of this kind of stuff? Well, let me take it back to the start of what I said. Charlie Windsor, the literal embodiment of colonial oppression, walking around the Republic. Because that's what the monarchy is. The monarchy is their figurehead, their representation, again, all right, that's how they do. far be it for us to kind of like deny people what they're going to do, how they're going to do it. I personally have a problem with it for myself, but the thing I have a bigger problem with is the people of the Republic not knowing their history. The people clapping and cheering for the literal embodiment of our trauma, our history of pain, of hurt, of bloodshed. Oh, I'm going to go out and I'm going to see, like, you know, the royalty, English royalty, the UK royalty. Now, it's not like I haven't grown up with that as well, because, as I said, I was born in 1981. You know what else happened in 1981? Charlie's first wedding. Yeah. Charlie Windsor married his first wife, Lady Diana, in 1981. I don't remember. I was a fucking kid. I was a frog. I don't remember much of anything. What I do remember, though, was 1997 when she died. And I remember the global outpouring of hurt and concern for her, because she had become an activist. She'd become someone who was speaking up for civil rights and human rights, etc., a humanitarian in many ways. But growing up as a kid, I remember finding a plate in our press at home when I was setting the table and taking it out. And it was like, no, John, you have to put that plate back. And I was like, why? Because it has Charlie's face and Diana's face in this lovely kind of print on it. Now, of course, my dad being dad, you know, he was like, well, I'll just buy that. Sure, they're going to be sold and I could sell it again for a little bit later on down the line, you know. But he's very much aware of, like, you know, his service to his country, his service to his republic. And it's this kind of clash that leads me to the point of my ramble rant. There are people living in the northern 6 counties of this island, in Northern Ireland as its own country, who have lived through some of the worst harm that people can do to other people. And they're supposed to be accepted. They're supposed to be, you know, if they want to be people of the Republic, they're supposed to be, if they want to be, people of the United Kingdom. But the difficulty that happens is that when people of the Republic applaud, cheer, or like venerate the figureheads and the icons of this oppressive state, which has caused all of this difficulty and all of this harm, it can leave people feeling left alone. It can leave them feeling lost and abandoned on both sides. So, you know, as I said, today is the 25th of March. The 17th of March is when we celebrate our national holiday, St. Patrick's Day. You know, see my video on Patrick, different conversation, different time. But it is a day of expression of national identity. And the tricolour flag is green, white, and orange. The green representing the Republic, the orange representing, like, you know, the representation of Protestant or Unionists within the island, and the white is the intentionality towards peace between them forever. So when you fly a tricolour, you're not just flying a Republican flag. You're flying a flag that acknowledges the existence of, you know, Protestant Union elements and the intentionality towards peace between them forever. And so we have our day, our national day, and then within a week, we have this visit from the figurehead of our oppressors. Now, again, I don't know the guy from Adam. He's happy with his second wife. They're living their merry well life, going around the place. Again, the problem for me is their position, their authority, their whatever. You know, I'll just go for a nice little holiday in Ireland, and suddenly the Irish government, the Irish people, the Irish police forces are responsible for their safety. The safety of our colonial oppressors. And the Irish people come out and clap and cheer and be there because, oh, look, it's royalty. So where does this leave me? I said I was starting with a rant. I said I was kind of talking about my own experiences and my own feelings. Conflicted. Conflicted is where I am. I hope and pray for, you know, unity and peace, not just for the island of Ireland, but for the fucking world. because there's far too many otherings that happen. There's far too much harm and hurt and atrocity done under the auspices of my flag, my nation, my country, my culture. What's going on at the moment as Russia tries to take over Ukraine. Again, a powerful country thinking they're entitled to go in and take what they want from another country through hurt and harm and terror and fear. So where's it going to end up? I don't know. Centuries worth of cultural trauma, centuries worth of like intergenerational pain and trauma for the people of the Ukraine? Yeah, probably. Why? Because someone else felt entitled to take what wasn't theirs. Whatever justification you're going to put on it. So, processing around that, hearing about the fear and the worry about like a global conflict, World War III. Okay, yeah, difficult. You know what we have in Ireland? The base at Shannon, which is a stopping off point from forces from the US to get into Europe. Okay, our neutrality. Yeah, okay, yeah, Ireland was neutral, always neutral, right? Yeah, up until the European Nice Treaty, which the Irish people had a referendum on and said, yeah, no thanks, we don't want to be like, you know, dragged into anyone else's conflict with a European army if it goes that way. And what Europe did was, yeah, we're not happy with your response to your referendum of your people's choice. Do it again. And so the Irish government did it again, and we had a second referendum on the Nice Treaty with changes, but it still removed the facet of Ireland's sovereignty, which was our right to be neutral. So I'm afraid. Of course I'm afraid. I'm 40 now. The likelihood of me being conscripted or drafted into an army, pretty low. The likelihood of my sons, and then we have Charlie Windsor come for his nice little holiday around Ireland. And the Irish people clap and applaud and cheer for this literal embodiment of the power structure of our oppressors, our historical oppressors. Sorry, historical oppressors, because we're a Republic of Ireland since 1948. But that's what, 1948, 1950s, 70 years ago. The average lifespan of a human is somewhere in the region of 80 to 85 years. I wouldn't be surprised if there are people still knocking around from the 1950s, 1960s who remember some of these changes when they do. Unless my maths is all wrong. Because, hey, you know, how are you going to maths quickly and efficiently when you're full of emotional feelings? So, to get it to a point, to anyone who's upset by this, it's okay to be upset. To anyone who wasn't aware about this, well, hopefully this has helped. To anyone who doesn't care about this, okay, you're entitled to your opinion. But for anyone who is forging a relationship with Ireland, real Ireland, the Irish people, the Irish culture, the Irish landscape, you need to know a bit of Irish history. And not just the ancient archaeological, like megalithic, Paleolithic, Neolithic history from which our mythology comes or our gods come. The recent history. So, 2022, we are at the 100-year anniversary of the Irish Free State, which kicked off the Irish Civil War. I really just fucking hope we've learned from our history, so that this time we won't be doomed to repeat it. Thank you very much for turning up and joining me. I know a lot of emotions and a lot of feelings in this, but hey, you've often said you enjoy my rants. So hopefully this is something that, even if there was a lot that you don't agree with, yeah, that's totally fine. Again, I'm not someone from Northern Ireland. I can't speak for that, but I have friends and I have family and I have people who are close and have survived within that structure. I have a friend of mine who lives up there, and he came from Luton in London, in England. And he has married and they have many beautiful children up there. But he still has this fear in the back of his mind. It's like, because I'm English. And I worry about him. I worry about all of them. Because what can I do? Well, if our energetic intentionality is something that we believe, we're all pagans here, right? Predominantly. And even if you're not, that's okay. So is this kind of process of what you feed grows, where you direct your attention is what you will manifest. What you kind of invest in and is what you will create or change or alter. And so for those on pagan spiritual like paths, that's a fundamental baseline thing. That's one of the things that a lot of pagans, no matter what your dogma, your spiritual practice, your deities believe, we believe in this energetic like intentionality and how it impacts on our reality and how it impacts on ourselves and our own spiritual growth. So be careful of your energetic intentionality, because if you're out there cheering for the literal embodiment of, you know, the oppressors of Irish people, you're directing energy in that way. You're kind of clapping and cheering, putting positive energy towards essentially the embodiment of our abusers, or the descendants of, I suppose, even though he's like a military title and all the rest of it from himself. Anyway, grumble, grumble, John, rant, rant, rant. What I'll say, and I'll leave it off with, is that at the end of the day, we're all just fucking people. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to need to learn and grow from our mistakes. But we need to be aware. We need to have conscious awareness. We need to know our history, whatever the history is, wherever you happen to be. I'm talking about my history and my nation and my country. But what is your history? What's the history of your nation? And not just your family, of the land in which you live. Take it back 50 years. What happened? Take it back 100 years. What happened? And how is that informing where you are now? That's what I do. When I'm feeling kind of conflicted about something, I need to get more information. I need to get like context. And sometimes the context is within the last week, within the last 2 weeks, within the last month. But sometimes my context has to go back 100 years. So, but by the time I get to the point of clear thought and rational processing on it, I have enough information to say, oh yeah, that's where that's actually coming from. Anyway, to all of you out there who are afraid as me, or even more afraid than me, it's okay. Fear is a natural state. Fear is one of the things that helps us survive. It's an instinctive response. Whether you fight, freeze, or flee, it's something that we all have, and as it's part of the human condition, part of human nature to have that in us. But what we need to do is choose wherever we can to not let the fear make the decisions. In the same way, don't let like the love make the decisions, the opposite end of the spectrum. You know, there has to be those things informing, but we need to find that point of balance that I always talk about, from which we can move forward from a healthy point of view, from a healthy, rational point of view and emotional point of view towards our spiritual growth. Anyway, this has been a ramble rant. I've said it 3 times now. And so 3rd time's the charm. I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to say slán, look after yourself, take care of yourself wherever you happen to be. And yeah, you're the only one of you that will ever exist. Give yourself a break and put your best foot forward, whichever way that happens. Take care. Goodbye.